Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host is Ryan Bell. Ryan, how's today going for you?
Hey, good morning, Todd. So far, so good. How are you?
You know, it's not too bad. It kind of had an interesting conversation with my wife the other day. I told her that I would like to be cremated. She made an appointment for me for next Wednesday. So, have I told that one before?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, well. We'll
an oldie but goodie.
There we go. We'll pretend it's new. So I did have one thing I wanted to kind of talk about. I know, Ryan, you're not a big Facebook guy, but right now it's kind of a trend on Facebook and probably other social media that I don't pay attention to, of showing little videos of people who go up and like ring people's video doorbells, their Ring doorbell or whatever. And maybe they leave some sort of a joke or an encouraging message, or they do some funny antic or something like that. And so that's kind of been a trend here recently. Well, there's one going around right now on Facebook that I just think is cool. So you've got these, 3 or 4 kids. They're boys, probably 7th grade or something like that, middle school. And so they go up and one of them, hits the doorbell, and they're going to, I think, what we used to call ding dong ditch.
Yeah.
They're going to ring the doorbell and run. And it was pretty funny. I've had someone do that once on my video doorbell too, and it was pretty humorous. But anyway, so one of the kids rings the doorbell, the others take off, and one of the boys stays there, and he looks into the camera, and I don't remember his exact words, but it's something like he said, "I just want to tell you that you matter. You're all right. There's always going to be someone who cares about you. No matter what you're facing, you're all right. You matter." And and it's going around, and I just think it's incredibly cool. And it kind of reminds me a little bit, of course, of a few episodes we had kind of stretched way outside of construction a little bit, although it's a topic and subject that hits construction pretty close to the heart. But we had an episode where we talked about suicide and suicide prevention. And one of the things that our guest on that show had talked about was, one of the best things you can do when you find someone who's going through a tough time in life is assure them that they matter, that someone cares about them. And that, his encouragement to everybody was, if you're going through that time, talk to somebody. People out there care about you, and talk to them. So I just think that video is really, really cool. And who knows, they may have staged the whole thing. I doubt it. It looked like it just kind of happened off the cuff.
Yeah, I do think I've seen it, and it seemed pretty organic and natural to me. In fact, I think the kids were the ones, or his friends were the ones that rang the doorbell.
Yeah.
And then he went up because he didn't want to be part of that, because they all took off running, and he said something about like ignore them or something. And
yeah, that was cool. That was good stuff. So anyway, that was a fun one, and need more kids like that out there. That's for sure. So anyway, well, let's go ahead and dig right into our episode of Construction Disruption. I'm excited about this one. Oh, one of the things I always forget, and I will remember now, is we are doing challenge words this episode. So Ryan and I, and also our guest, each have a challenge word we have been given by one of the others that we are challenged to work into the conversation somehow as seamlessly and naturally as we can. And so you, the audience, might be listening for peculiar words that we use. And at the end, we will reveal whether we were successful in using our assigned word or not. So anyway, let's move forward. So, it's interesting. And I have seen so much change in this in my years in business and construction. But, today and for a number of years now, we live in a world of data and information. I grew up with Encyclopedia Britannica. That was the household thing you went to, reference you went to get information. And, today we have more information at our fingertips, obviously, than would fill a million sets of Encyclopedia Britannica 40 years ago. But yet I think the challenge we have is how do we use that information to really benefit our businesses? And today we're going to talk some about that. We're going to talk about much more, including how to develop processes in our businesses that lead to success. And we're going to discuss that with our special guest, Moustafa Moursy. Moustafa is the president of Push Analytics, a company that was kind of created to be a bridge between advertising and information, so that critical business decisions can be made with speed and precision. Moustafa, welcome to Construction Disruption. It's a pleasure to have you as our guest today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. So you really have a pretty long history in technology and also in sales, including several years as a sales engineer and channel manager with Schneider Electric. I'm curious, what market needs did you see that led you to co-found Push Analytics?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of like you said, right? We live in a world where data is key, data is king, and really to be able to be making the right decisions in any business, whether it's in construction or outside of construction, you really need to be able to have the right data at your fingertips, and you need to also have good processes in order to enable you to have that data and in order to be able to act on that data properly. And they go hand in hand, and we can dive into that in a little bit here.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, and I love it how you talk about, okay, no point in having all this stuff and trying to do something with it until you have the processes in place to actually make something of it and do positive things.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of curious, before we get too much in the weeds, can you give us an overview perhaps of the types of clients that you work with at Push Analytics, and maybe even a little bit on the variety of services that ultimately you provide to your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we work across different industries. We work with service-based businesses. We work with direct-to-consumer businesses. We work with B2B businesses, across the board, what we're helping people with is really enabling their businesses to succeed more. Now, we have a diverse history and we have different services. I mean, we do offer data. The first thing we actually had offered as a company historically was ads management for Google, Facebook, like all the ad platforms. And we knew that we wanted to do it in a data-driven way. Like, my partner has a lot of experience on the ad front. We knew we wanted to do it in a data-driven way, and really hone into that. So that's why we started with Push Analytics. And then we do process build out, CRM consultations, like kind of like really getting your full process like end to end organized. I have a ton of B2B experience, and really getting your processes organized end to end, and just data consults. So I mean, we can think of it as like we almost have like three divisions. So the advertising side, the process and business consulting side, and then the data division, right? So we build out integrations for people, reports, and a lot of different cool things.
It seems to me that there's not a lot of companies out there that bring all three of those together. And I love kind of how you broke that down to explain what you do. And
Absolutely.
So often companies will do one of those, but not the others. And so people are left with, kind of this chimera, sort of this three-headed monster, and they don't know what to do with it. But yet here you are bringing it all together. So that's awesome.
Great use of the word chimera.
Well, I know I woke up with that word this morning. It's just the weirdest thing. Anyway, I know that you talk again about the importance of businesses establishing a solid sales process. Even before they start to implement a CRM or any other sort of tech. What do you see as the essential basics of a successful sales process that every company should have? And, that seems like a basic question, but yet I do think there are companies out there that miss some of the basics.
Yeah, it's not a basic question, actually. It's a great question. And, a lot of companies don't have it. Don't have the basics, like you said, or whatever, right? They, even bigger, smaller companies. I mean, you see it a lot where they're missing things on the process side. They don't really have a set good sales process, just things fall between the cracks. And it could be simple things like, hey, you get leads inbound and you don't have a way of keeping track of the leads that you're getting inbound or following up on them. I mean, if you have a process by which, let's say, you go out and do estimates for people, let's say you're a contractor, you go out and do estimates for homeowners on something, and you get those leads inbound, you don't have any way of keeping track of that or following up on them. A lot of things are falling between the cracks, right? So it could be quote unquote small things, but I mean, that's kind of ultimately what a good process is. It's a bunch of small things that are organized in a way that add up to significant, productivity at the end. A lot of times when we're doing consults, or we're talking on webinars, we kind of ask people like, where do you feel like your processes are right now? And we put up a slide with like, 4 answers, like very good, not good, bad, or non-existent. Now it's a little bit of a trick question because when people put non-existent, the thing is every single business has processes, and it's something very important to understand, because the process is just a way to get from point A to point B. So if you have customers, you have a process. Now you might not be paying attention to your process or be cognizant of that. So you might not have a great process, but ultimately you do have a process. So it's something very important to take full attention to. Because it's there regardless, and it's going to impact you regardless, and it's very low hanging fruit, relatively speaking, to be able to address that and make sure that you're getting the best out of it.
What do you think sometimes, stands in the way of people developing good sales processes? I mean, they just get busy with other stuff. What else ends up taking priority? And, I guess furthermore, what sort of failures have you seen happen because people were missing key parts of that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things. So the first part is obviously the education part, and that's why I kind of, I said what I said about, everybody has a process. I think it's important to realize that, right? I mean, it's kind of like when you go to, I don't know, when you go to the doctor and you start doing blood work and they tell you something like whatever, and your blood is high. I mean, you've had that the whole time. You just never paid attention to it, right? So
Gotcha.
it's not like it's not there. You've had to eat healthy the whole time. You had a diet, right? And people say the same thing with diet. Like diet, anything is a diet, right? It's not what you're doing to lose weight or whatever is a diet. Anything is a diet. It's just a bad diet, right? Essentially. So it's the same thing, right? Anything is going to be a process. It just could be just a bad process. So you ignoring it doesn't mean that it's not there. So I think the first thing is like really the educational piece of like how critical this really is. But then it's like not understanding how to do it, not understanding, what to look for, not understanding where to start. Some people get overwhelmed, even though it shouldn't be. Not understanding the, or being able to kind of get maybe the rest of the organization on board. Because again, you see this even in like very large organizations where it's like, it's very hard for them sometimes to get the right process and implement the right process because there's sometimes disconnect. Maybe you have somebody who's in charge of making the process who there's a disconnect between them and the people who are going to be, let's say, running the process. Like, let's say you have like a, I don't know, some VP of sales, but then the state wants the salespeople to do some process, but then the salespeople and the VP of sales that don't really see eye to eye, or he's not really aware of how they handle things. So they're not really accounting for things that the salespeople are dealing with. So then they're kind of like, whatever. I mean, they don't really understand what we're doing anyways. So whatever. So you see that a lot too. So, yeah, you definitely need to be able to, if you are going to do a process, get an understanding of what's happening across the board, down to the front line. And be able to like kind of incorporate that into a process that works for both the organization internally and works for the people who have to interface with the actual customers as well, and doesn't introduce too much friction.
Interesting. Well, given that everyone, they've got some sort of process, it's a matter of whether it's a good one or not. But, is there any sort of exercise that you lead folks through to help them evaluate their sales process to determine whether it's doing all that it should be? And I guess I'm curious furthermore, I mean, do you see a sales process as something that, okay, we've got it set and we never have to mess with that again?
No.
So it's a destination, or is it something that, is more of a journey?
No, absolutely. And that's a great question because people oftentimes, and that's even one of the reasons why people might not do something, because they might be like, well, they want to wait till they get whatever it is perfect. Like, right. I mean, look, it's not going to happen that way. Right. You gotta do a big chunk up front, get something good, decent enough starting. But then that's the kind of the whole point of, again, process and data. They go hand in hand. You're going to do the process. You're going to get your data. The data might actually lead you to make improvements on your process, and not just the data of like what customers are doing, but also the data points on like what your sales team, for example, is doing. Right? It's like maybe you set a process a certain way, then you realize like, hey, the sales team, we thought their sales team is going to use this one feature a lot, or this one reminder feature a lot, whatever, and they're not. And then you talk to them, and then it turns out they would rather have a reminder elsewhere in the process, for example, right? So that's really key. It's going to be evolving. It's going to be growing. You don't have to get 100% right up front, but you do want to do something up front. As far as like where to start or where to look at, I mean, one thing that first, when we consult with somebody, we always ask them like, look, just tell me what your process is today, right? And it doesn't matter. There's no like wrong answer. I'm not judging that.
Right.
If your process is like super, hey, we have like this whole sophisticated thing that maybe is too complicated, great. If your process is spreadsheets, great. If your process is, we write stuff on a napkin and we hand it to the customer, and that's our sales process, that's fine. Just tell us what it is. There is no wrong answer, and the napkin thing is more common than you think.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. I got that reference actually from my work in construction days, and then I've been using that with other industries, and it's like very useful because a lot of people are at that is their whole process, right? So and again, there's no like wrong answer, so we kind of take it from there and then start working through. Now, one way to look at it, and a lot of times on webinars and stuff like that, we'll go through kind of like there's a diagram that will show, but where do you start? Well, you got to look at the process from the thing that matters the most for your business, which is your customers. So you kind of just, if you walk through like where the customer starts interfacing with your brand and kind of move downwards, that's kind of where you can start seeing the different processes. Because by the way, it's not just a sales process. It's actually, your business is a series of processes, just like your body is a series of like systems, right? Like, you have the digestive system, you have the respiratory system, you have whatever, right? So you have all these systems that all have to work within each other. Okay, like there's different components, but then they also have to connect to each other, right? So there's still like key points at which they connect to each other. They don't operate in a void. So your sales process has to work within itself, but then your sales process connects to other things, right? To like maybe your marketing process or your lead gen process, and then on the other side, it connects to the operations side and like the service side, which by the way is a huge friction point that people don't even pay attention to. So you kind of start looking at like your customer comes in, they come in, they find out about you through different ways, then they come and they might be interested. Let's say they come to your website, they might be interested, and they put in their info. And that's kind of like the first aspect, which is like the lead management process. So then you start, and then you kind of keep going down. Is the way that to think about it and be able to look at it. So.
Very interesting. Well, I want to kind of skip ahead a little bit and talk about the subject of implementation. And really, it could be implementation of a change in the sales process. It could be implementation of a new CRM or some other tech or an advertising platform. I think sometimes businesses spend a lot of time, I almost want to say in their ivory tower, and they kind of strategize and map these things out, or they pursue this new tech or whatever, but they don't really get good buy-in from their team members. And so the whole thing kind of falls apart during implementation. Any suggestions for how business managers and leaders should handle that as far as, having a successful implementation of something new?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd say getting key input, or having a business leader that maybe already has some understanding, but getting key input from key people at the front. Look, I mean, anytime you're doing a new process, there's always going to be, even if it's a great process, even if the tools are great and everything, there's always going to be a little bit of friction, just because people have to get used to doing something in a new way, which that's perfectly natural, right? But it's getting some buy-in and some feedback from the people who are going to be using it. So, oftentimes, let's say you're working with like a VP of sales to set up like a new sales process. And then one thing you might be like, is like, hey, let's get one of your like star salespeople on the call with us, right? As we're talking through this in the planning stage, right? You don't want the whole sales team on the call. It's not going to be that productive, right? But maybe here, like, let's get one or two of your star salespeople or people that can also throw in some stuff, and they might come and everybody's working on something, and then they're like, hey, actually, this one thing, you guys have to understand, whenever we send out contracts to the customers, it's like, we need to get them back right away. We can't wait a day. Like, they might give you like these little things that are like really key. And then you start incorporating some of their feedback. So then when you go out and you're actually, build it, then you're able to kind of like relate back to the sales team, like it's from something that actually originated from them. So that's one aspect, is like incorporating feedback from somebody in the sales team on the front lines. But then the second is your choice of tools should be something that's intuitive or easiest to use. I can talk more about that. And then third is you want to make sure to have the appropriate training. And that's why anytime like we're doing like a CRM build out or anything, there's always a tail end of that, the training as part of the scope, because like really, really important. Like you want to have like a training to get the people to understand like what's happening, what are we doing, with very clear steps. Like if you have a sales product, like a lot of times like a deal pipeline in your CRM, you want to have very clearly delineated steps to be able to show what's going on, and what defines what's in each step. And the training is very key. And as part of that training, you want to show them how this is beneficial to them as well, right? Because there's elements of the process that are kind of beneficial, maybe more internally or to like a sales leader. But if you do it right, there's elements that are going to be beneficial to the frontline people. Like when you put in your estimates, you have automation that you get reminders if a customer didn't buy or didn't move forward after 2 weeks, for example. Well, that's going to help. Yeah, okay. So somebody else is going to see the reporting. That's fine, but that's also going to help you because now you're going to get more sales because you might have forgotten about stuff. You might have gotten overwhelmed. I might pull up a report and be like, hey, did you know that you did like 40 estimates that you worked with the customer in the past like 4 months and only like 3 of them bought? Like there's probably more that would have bought, but you probably just forgot about them, or you just can't see them in a clean way. And the last thing on that actually is and this is something that's really on the company, but that having a really good company culture matters a lot, right? So if you're like kind of if management or whoever's sitting on ivory tower and it's like, what, we want to make a process because we want to like really see what the sales guys are doing, and it's kind of like in a way that's just more like, you need to have it in a way that it fosters like, hey, we want to all communicate. Like, guys, it's fine. Like these reports are here, these things are here to help all of us grow, right? So having that culture is really important. We were doing this once with like a service. It was like a service type process that we were building after we built the sales, and we started doing like certain reports on like time to close ticket, time to like number of tickets handled and stuff like that. And one of the things like we made a point of saying is like, look, there's no bad. Maybe a rep is working on some more complex tickets, right? Like so, but we just need to be able to see it and then have the conversation of like, hey, do you need help? Hey, like, what can we do to help you? As opposed to like, hey, Todd, why the hell are your tickets taking way longer to close than Brian
Right.
closing them really fast, right? But that's just a bad culture. It's just not going to help anybody.
Well, and I loved, where you talked about that implementation. What I was kind of getting a picture there was, you want to get some buy-in from folks. So, some of your respected people in the organization really become champions for what it is that you're trying to implement. And so you want to makes a lot of sense. Tell me a little bit about training at Push Analytics, and what does that look like when you're training a company to implement a CRM or whatever it might be? Is this done virtually? Is it done in person? Is it ongoing? Is it a one shot and done sort of thing, or what's
yeah, I mean, all the above are options, right? I think it depends on the actual it depends on the implementation and the scope and everything, but all the above are options. I mean, some people do want ongoing help. We do offer like, ongoing services where it's beyond training. Like we help maintain, we help like clean up and tweak, and if you like a CRM tool, if you're using that, we help like maintain that. But definitely at the minimum, if we're doing any sort of scope, we want to have at least like this is again the minimum. You want to have at least like 1 or 2 sessions where you're really getting the team to understand like what's happening, and to understand like what you implemented. And it's always like we're going specifically through what their implementation is, right? So so you really want that, because you want them to have like visibility. I mean, you need the process to be obviously clean, and you need them to have the visibility as to like what's happening and why it was done, and to be able to like use the tools, right? So if you're implementing a CRM, I mean, there's some certain things you need to show. Like we're a top. We work with different CRMs, but we're a top, like for example, HubSpot partner. We're in their top 10% or like platinum tier. And you know, it's always like people might know how to use it. And I do like HubSpot is easy to use, so that's one good thing that helps with kind of the adoption, like we were saying, Todd. People might know how to use it, but they might not know like, hey, this cool feature that like saves you a lot of time, right? There's been a lot of times where I'd show like a feature on a call that maybe is like, you know, how to send like a snippet of text, like right, save it and like reuse it, and then people like they're like, what? Like their eyes just kind of like go lit up, and they're like, wow, like, and then they get really excited, and you can tell they're getting really excited because they're like, wow, this saves me time. So now they're not like really thinking of like, I got to do this because I got to do it. They're like, oh, this actually saves me a lot of time. So they kind of start seeing that, they get excited, they want to use it now, and that just helps with the buy-in. Again, there's another part of the company culture that the company kind of has to do, but you know, at the very least, yeah. So you want to have that as a minimum, the initial trainings to get that initial push. And then depending on the organization, depending on its needs, it can be like ongoing training, ongoing improvement, you know, or they could be doing something internal to kind of keep pushing and keep monitoring, or however ways.
Well, I was going to ask you, just I think answered it for me there, but I was going to ask if you offered additional training or support after
Absolutely,
that initial phase, or if that's something that falls to the CRM platform then.
No, we offer 100%. We offer initial support. I mean, the tech supports at the platforms are just that. They're just going to give you tech support. They're not going to give you sales consulting and coaching and training on how to use a specific implementation. So no, we do offer ongoing support. You know, again, as an optional, right? So that's why I say they just depend. So, you know, when we do a scope, we're first understanding the business, where we understanding exactly what's happening in the business, where they are today. We discuss that so we can take them from where they are to where they want to go or need to go. You know, we map it out. You know, we do a lot of flow charts. Like we map it out and show like exactly what happens, where in the process or should happen, and then we discuss like what we want to implement and do there. So we're doing all that first before, so that everybody can kind of see what's going on and be on the same page and map it out, so that you don't end up with like some sort of cyclops where it's just like a, you know, one-eyed process and you're not really seeing what's going on, and you end up with all these automations and all these things, and you're like, I can't tell what's happening, and it just looks like a big monster, right? So a lot of times we do that. We jump into CRM implementations, they have no visibility, they have a lot of automations. You ask them like, why do you guys have this? What is this doing? What is it supposed to be doing? I don't know. Somebody set it up 3 years ago, and we have no idea what they did, right? So that's not good either. So we'll sit there. We'll basically map that out. We'll show everything. We'll look at it together. And again, this is in collaboration with the client, because they have to have their input. Like a lot, we ask a lot of questions, right? We're looking at it together, and we're like, okay, hey, you might be like, oh, actually, can you add this here? Can you add a reminder here? You know what? Oh, I like how you guys mapped out that after the estimate, we're going to send a reminder email. We're going to send an email to the customer like, hey, thank you for getting an estimate from us. And 2 days later, we're going to send them an email like, hey, did you call your sales rep, for example? You might be like, yeah, we lose a lot of people there. Can you actually add another 2 emails there, for example, right? So we map all that out. And this is before we've built anything in any tool. And then once we have that laid out, then we off to the races and we actually go and build that into the tool. So that's a little bit different about how we do it. You know, even working with like other people, like just on the CRM side, they might just jump into the tool. We don't do that because you need to be on the same page and we need to map things out. And that part is actually harder than the actual building out of the tool. So the context really matters a lot.
So I like that, you know, thought of mapping things out. Makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of curious, is that a lot of how your relationship looks, you know, and works with your clients, or is there anything, you know, you do up front when you know, first have a potential new client, that really helps them assess the areas where maybe you or new processes can help them? What does that look like early on?
Yeah, of course. So if we're talking a new client, I mean, we obviously do discovery, and we understand, and we understand, we help them understand and work with them to understand like where they at today, right? So you might come to me, you might be like, I already have a CRM and we're not using it. And I'm like, okay, well, which features do you have? What CRM do you have? You know, what are you doing? You might be like, I have HubSpot. I'm like, well, hubs do you have? What did you buy? What do you? Let's look at your current implementation. Let's see what you're using, what you're not using. So depending on that, like the conversation could take different approaches. I mean, you might be like, we don't have anything. Like we don't have a CRM. We use spreadsheets, right? So then I might be like, well, show me your spreadsheets, and we start looking at your spreadsheets, and we start talking about like what we can do. And oftentimes we'll phase it, right? So you don't want to start with everything right away because let's say you're like, you know that you want to do stuff on the sales side, stuff on the marketing side, stuff on the service side, but you know we just want to chunk it off a little bit. So we might be like, okay, well the hottest thing, just based on kind of what we're talking about, is you guys don't really have anything on sales, but you have a lot of leads coming in. So maybe let's focus on getting you up and running on a CRM for the sales side and build that process out based on the spreadsheets and stuff that you guys have. We can maybe move that over, make some reports based on the spreadsheet. We talk to you and then be like, Todd, do you agree? And you might be like, yeah, that sounds good. Or yeah, can we also add this? And then we build a scope, like a plan of work, a scope of work out. Everybody sees it before we start, so everybody's on the same page as to what we're going to be diving into. So we dive in before we dive in, but I meant kind of we dive in obviously more when we start the scope. So we're gonna refer to some of the stuff. So then we start that scope and be like, okay, Todd, like we obviously talked about these spreadsheets, and we looked through them before, but now tell us more about how you guys generate these spreadsheets. Like where does this information come from? How often do you guys fill? And we start asking like more specific questions on that, and then mapping that out.
Do you ever work with, like, say you get a contractor that is running their business with spreadsheets and they want to continue doing it that way? Do you work with them if they're set on continuing to use spreadsheets, or do they need to move into a CRM?
It depends, right? It depends on their needs. I mean, we have worked with people who, yes, they do want to keep using spreadsheets. And actually one time we were, it was one of our marketing clients, because all the time when we're doing marketing, we always also want to look at certain aspects of the process, because if we're going to do like Google ads for you and we're going to help you get leads, but your leads go to a dead end and a black hole, then it doesn't really matter. You can spend $1 million on leads and you can get 100,000 of them, but nobody answers the phone and nobody does anything. So it doesn't really matter. Then you're going to just come and be like, I'm not getting leads, but you are. So we always look at that. So this was a contractor. They were, we wanted to make sure that they had a way to look at the leads. We were initially kind of telling them like, let's get on a CRM. And then they're like, we have something. So they had it wasn't exactly spreadsheets. It was Airtable, if you guys ever heard of that, which is kind of like, it's a fancier spreadsheet. It is kind of a spreadsheet, but it's if you can connect them to each other.
A little more project management.
Yeah, a little bit more project management. So they were using like spreadsheets in Airtable, essentially. We looked at it and we asked them a few questions, and we're like, all right, this is good enough for now. Like we can just make some tweaks, but this is good enough for now. Like we can work with this, right? So it depends. But at some point you guys are going to need a CRM, but not right now, right? So it just depends. It depends on, what they need and how flexible they are. I mean, obviously, if somebody is completely like doesn't want to change anything about what they're doing at all, well, then they're not really that serious about it, right? But if they're like, they're comfortable with spreadsheets, they want us to see if there's a way that they can continue to use spreadsheets as part of their process. If it makes sense, I mean, it's something we could, look at. But again, it just really depends. Is the answer? It just really depends. But I would definitely have a conversation with them, and be like, why don't you want to get on a CRM, and try to understand that and explain to them like kind of the benefits or not. But ultimately, like we always want to do what's going to help the business. So like in the example I told you, for example, even though we kind of went in with the hypothesis of like, this is kind of the CRM plan we want to do, when we saw what they did and we saw that it's actually good enough, we're like, you know what, just keep what you have, right? So we want to see what's going to help the business. So we're going to work together to figure that out. As long as they have an open mind, then that's totally fine, right? And we want to hear all that they have to say and why they have to say, and kind of go back and forth on like why one thing is better than the other or not.
I'm curious, what are some, trends or developing technologies, or maybe even things you see in your crystal ball that don't even exist today, that you see coming up in the future that are really going to have an impact on how companies do business and do sales and lead gen and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we well, we are on construction disruption, and I do want to say that I think construction is ripe for disruption, right? So
Mhm.
I think that a lot of construction businesses, it's just there's not a lot of people with both construction experience and tech experience. So a lot of construction businesses, and I mean people know how to use tech. That's not what I mean, but I mean like technology background, right? Like working at a tech company or whatever. There's not a lot of people like the people who went to technology. Like when I used to work at Schneider, for example, it was like hidden universe that like I'm like, wow, nobody knows any of this exists, but it's like a huge part of the world, right? Like I mean, the way I got the job was I was looking for a certain type of job. I knew I wanted like a sales engineer job. I didn't know who Schneider was or who any of these companies were, like Train or any of the other companies that I was, possibly going to work for. And they came to our universities, right? And it was like, oh, they had a good sales program, so sure, why not? Then when I started like looking, and I started looking at the catalog, and I started like understanding what a breaker was and what all this stuff was, and I'm like, wait, this stuff is everywhere. Like it's not. This isn't like some secret thing that they sell niche product. This is literally in every house and every infrastructure like possible, right? And but yet nobody knows about it. Like even if you studied electrical engineering in college or something, you don't know. Like you don't really know what any of this stuff is, right? So that's kind of the thing, right? It's not one of those fields. It's not like tech, for example, where everybody knows that. Like, oh, I got a friend that worked at Google or Facebook or whatever and makes however much money, and everybody just wants to be in tech. It's not like that, which I think is it's a cool thing. But at the same time, I think that you're going to start seeing there's just more opportunity there. I think that's a good thing because there's more opportunity, right? So construction businesses and stuff a lot of times, and again, uh, this is not a bad thing. It's like you haven't been doing certain things in a certain way, um, and haven't been leveraging some of the stuff that's been used in other industries as much. So there's a huge opportunity, and I think the contractors and distributors and the businesses that are gonna take advantage of this and actually use the right digital tools, do the right digital marketing, fix up their processes, they're going to thrive, right? That's what I think, right? I mean, I worked extensively with distributors also. I mean, with contractors, I worked with distributors, end users, and consultants too. But I worked with distributors when I was at Schneider, and one of the things again that I see is like what other types of businesses are doing or have been doing to some degree. That is not really on the digital side is not really being done as much on like the distributor side yet, right? So it becomes like a lot easier. So for example, if you're in a let's just say you're like a lawyer or something, every lawyer is doing Google ads, right? And if you come to buy, it's an auction. If you guys are familiar with Google ads, I mean, I know it's a little bit of a tangent. You're clicking on an ad and you're bidding a keyword for the most part, right? So it's kind of an auction unofficially. So you might say like, hey, personal, like you might want to bid on if somebody types, I need a personal injury lawyer in Google. You might want to say, well, I want to pay for that keyword or these keywords, right? So the keywords are really expensive though, because A, law is expensive, and B, there's a lot of lawyers that are willing to bid for this because they know that if I spend $100 for a click or $200 for a click, every 10 people from those, one of them is going to call us and be a customer, and we're going to make $5,000. So whatever, who cares if we had to spend $2,000 even, like, right? So they know that, but they're all doing it, right? Now imagine you're in a field like a contractor or whatever, they're not doing it as much. So you might not really be competing against anybody, even though it's worth a lot of money. So you might actually be able to get like a very good advantage, so to speak, right? So if you're bidding like whatever a service near me and nobody else is really doing that, it's kind of open market. So I've seen a lot of that. I think that's going to be something very interesting to pay attention to. That's why anytime I talk to any of my construction contacts, I'm like, you really gotta get on this because this is like a huge, huge opportunity.
A few episodes ago, we had a gentleman from Zurich, Switzerland, and as our guest, and his whole topic was, talking about entrepreneurialism and the opportunities that exist out there in construction, because we are such a huge and varied industry and on the cusp of so much advancement and disruption. And so, he's talking about, hey, there's opportunities out there. Find something and pursue it. And so,
Absolutely,
yeah, good stuff.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Moustafa. This has been very informative and great to hear about push analytics. We're kind of close to wrapping up what we call the business end of things, and then we'll have a little bit more fun. But is there anything we haven't covered today that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like, kind of as we're wrapping that up, that I mean, we talked about different things, obviously, but one thing to just know is that really, like, pay attention to your process. Really look at that and your tools. And the one thing that I like to say about process that's kind of unique is that if you're, as long as you're a business and you have customers, and you're, any improvement to your process is as guaranteed to as you're going to get ROI as anything else, right? Because it's something that's already more in your control, right? If you're doing like marketing, or you're putting up billboards, or you're putting up Google ads or whatever, you have to worry about, like, okay, like, are they going to come? Are they going to click on my website? Are they going to, no? And you have to figure that out. I mean, there's a process to figuring that out. No pun intended, um, but it's like, it's a little bit more distant, right? Whereas when you are building up, like, we're fixing up your sales process, it's all stuff that is in your boundaries. It's in your organization. These are all leads that you have. These are all estimates that you have. So you're basically like extracting, relatively free money out of what you already have. Because if you already do, let's say, 100 estimates a quarter, and right now you got 10 of them eventually sign up, and you can bring that number up to 15. You already have the 100 estimates. You already did the estimates. You already have the contacts, but with like a better process, better follow-up, better management of lead cycle, now you brought it up to 15. You just increased your revenue without doing anything externally. Like, but it's like a huge opportunity. And it's the same thing for like efficiency. If you were able to make like a more efficient service process, and now your service team can get the people back quicker, and the customers are happier, you can take on more customers, and customers are happier, so they're more likely to come. And it's like something that you have full control over. So that's something I love about process. Because again, we do marketing projects, we do process projects, we do like all sorts of things. So that's something I love about process, is that that ability to like really control what's happening, because it's all inside. It's all in your turf. It's all in your turf. You're not waiting for them to pass you the ball like you are with marketing. It's all in your field, right? So that's why it's super key to like really pay attention to this. And even if people want to reach out and ask us questions or pick our brains, we can definitely do that as well too. So don't feel overwhelmed by it.
Well, we're going to put this in again later, but what is the best way for folks to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say just email us directly. Just keep it simple. So you can send it to hello@pushanalytics.com and just put in the title that you came from Construction Disruption. And then the team will go ahead and route it, and we can jump on a call with you guys. And I can even jump on a call with you, and we can really talk through it. So as long as you just put that in, we have everybody to know that, we'll take care of you guys if you come up.
Well, and that's great advice. Just looking for those little opportunities that, will end up having significant ROI, and, letting them build on each other. And so good advice. Well, Moustafa, before we close out, I have to ask you if you're willing to participate in something we call our rapid fire questions.
Nice.
So this is the way we close out shows. This is a series of 7 questions we ask you. Some are on the serious side, some are a little silly. Are you up to the challenge of rapid fire?
Let's go. Let's try it out.
Awesome.
Can't promise what the answers will be, but let's go.
Well, we will alternate asking, if that's okay. Ryan, you want to ask question number 1?
I would love to. I was hoping you would throw this one my way, because I love this question. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? Would there be zucchini served? And what's the first question you would ask them?
Man, I have so many that I would want to, like, just so many politicians. I mean, I'll go with Abraham Lincoln. I think I'd go with Abraham Lincoln. And
Cool.
Would there be zucchini served? I mean, if he likes it, I'm not a zucchini fan. Sorry, Ryan, but if he likes it, sure, no, we'll do that. And I would just really, I don't know if it would be a question, but I would just really like want to pick his brain, because I do think he's an interesting personality. And I mean, I don't know, like, we're 200 years removed or whatever, but it's like you look at it and you read it and you're like, wow, this guy cared like way above and beyond what you would think that, politicians usually do, right? Like, he really like sacrificed to actually like try to get things done, right? So I kind of want to pick his brain and be like, like kind of just feel them out. Honestly, it sounds silly, but that's something that's always like been curious to me. When you read about the different, like he feels like a politician that wasn't really a politician and was really trying to, honest to God, just do something. Because some of the things he said and some of the stances he took, there's no way you're going to take that if you didn't have some level of like genuine, true concern. And that's not that common in that space, right? People are usually doing same things to like appease an audience or whatever, but it doesn't seem, again, it's hard to tell. We're not alive at the time, but it doesn't seem that way. But I want to know. I want to find that out.
He seemed to be working more from conviction than he was from how do I get elected again?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, how do I actually help people? How do I help the country? And not like how do I just win votes, right?
Yeah.
Which sometimes can get conflated, but in times of like true crisis like that, it's very hard to do what he did if you don't have any conviction.
I am voting that the best answer to a rapid fire question in the history of construction disruption.
Oh, good one. Good. Okay. Question number 2. Do you have a hobby or an activity you enjoy that might surprise people?
I mean, I like to do a lot of things. Surprise, I don't know. I mean, I like working with electronics, for example, but that's not really going to surprise people. I mean, I did work with Schneider Electric, although I had that hobby from before. I like biking.
Cool.
I don't know if that, so I don't know anything that's gonna like necessarily surprise people. Like I don't like, for example, like jumping off parachutes and skydiving or anything crazy like that. So I do have a lot of hobbies. I don't know that any of them will be particularly surprising. But yeah, I mean, I did do. I was into like a lot of just learning about like crypto and stuff like that. So if anybody ever wants to have a crypto conversation, that was like kind of a little bit of a hobby. So that may be one.
Very good.
Question number 3. What's the last TV show, movie, or book that you couldn't stop talking about?
Well, it was the last one that I watched. I went to watch the last Spider-Man, I guess Across the Spider-Verse, with my wife. And I couldn't stop talking about it, but maybe not for the same reasons that other people would not be able to stop talking about it. We have like I was really annoyed that it was to be continued, and I don't go to the movies that often. I'm not like a big movie theater person. Like we'll watch stuff at home on Netflix or whatever, but I'm not like a big movie theater person. But I did because it was like an occasion. I went with my wife, and I was like, it's like I get like I need to talk and move a lot. So like when I have to sit in the seat for like 3 hours and not say anything, it's very hard for me. So I'm like, all right, like getting jittery. It's a good movie, by the way. I'm getting jittery, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, this plot is like here, and there's like this movie's been going on for hours. Like, how much longer is left? And then all of a sudden, it's like to be continued. I'm like, man, come on! I didn't know that. I didn't know it was going to be. I wouldn't even have watched it. I would have just waited till the next one came out. Now I have to wait, and like, I can't. So I couldn't stop talking about that. And my friends are like, you're like, they're like, we can't believe you can't appreciate this masterpiece, and this is what you're talking about. And I'm like, sorry, guys.
That's another good answer. Next question. Do you have a bucket list vacation that you hope to take someday?
I like traveling a lot, but it's a lot easier said than done, obviously. So I have kids, I have stuff. So I do like traveling when we do travel, but I mean, I think like being able to travel, like if I had like, just an undetermined amount of time, like being able to travel like the entire world. Like one of my friends, and it's smart, he did this before like he doesn't have kids or anything. So he actually went and like I think did like a whole like Europe cross country, like cross continent, like drive or something. Like I don't know. I think he went to like I don't know how many countries, and like I've never been to Europe, but I think he went to like a bunch of like 5, 6, 7 countries in like one trip, and like kind of just drove across. I think that's really cool because like just getting to see like how different countries operate and how they do things and stuff like that. I think that's like really cool.
Good stuff.
That would be fun. Yeah. Question number 5. What is a product or service that you have purchased recently that was kind of a game changer for you? Something that, kind of made you say, where have you been all of my life?
Oh, I got a standing desk. I didn't get it necessarily just because it's a standing desk, but it was one from like a company that I had a friend that had that, and I really liked it. And I always wanted a desk. Well, first of all, a lot of desks you buy online now, they don't have like real wood. It's all like laminate, MDF and whatever. And I was like, I want real wood. Like, I just want real wood. And and it's adjustable, so it's like really nice because the ergonomics are like, it's really important to have good ergonomics. If you sit at a desk all the time, I just learned about this, and I feel like it's like super key for everybody now. And you can adjust it to like exactly your height. And honestly, it's a game changer, and it helps organize everything. I decked it out with accessories, so I have like the wheels on it. I have the bolt-on surge protector on it, so like all my plugs are now basically just, I only need one wire from the desk to the wall for the most part, and I can just roll the desk to wherever I want. So yeah, it's been a game changer. I'm like really happy with it. I'm sitting on it now, and I feel good.
You are our second person who that's been their answer, actually. So that's
Recently,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, recently.
What
Yeah.
brand? What's the brand?
I got Uplift Desk, so we'll give
Uplift.
them free marketing. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Again, there's less expensive desks, but I liked the accessorizing fact of it. Like, I have I know somebody who was gonna offer. He's like, I already have the legs for building a desk, and he was just gonna give them to me, and I just had to buy the wooden thing and put it on. But I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to buy like a ready-made desk with the accessories I want, like the way I want it. Because I'm not gonna buy a desk every year, like hopefully, right? I'm just gonna buy it and probably never buy one for like another 5-10 years. Kind of like Todd's video on the metal roofs, right? Like, hey, we bought it and we made a good investment one time, and now we're chilling, and everybody else is still changing their roofs, right? It's the same thing. That's just get the right one and hopefully do the same. So
good stuff. Okay, next to last question. What would you like to be remembered for at the end of your time?
I really would hope that I can be remembered for like helping people. I mean, I do. And actually, that was going back to your bucket list question. That was one thing I forgot. There is one thing where like if I just didn't have to work as much or whatever, like sometimes when you hear of like, oh, there's like a natural disaster or something or whatever, you kind of like just go want to help for like a week. It's really hard though, like if you're not like retired, or because like it's like already hard enough to like manage and take your family on vacation, like just finding time and stuff. So it's hard. But I would want to be able to do that at some point. I hope that I can. Like, hey, there's a hurricane. Let's go help clean up, and let's go help people and stuff like that. So I mean, just helping people. I do really think that and I do think like when you help people, it actually helps you. Kind of in a weird way. It's funny in high school. I used to be really good at physics. And we were taking like AP physics, and I was like, I don't know, like legendarily good according to some people. I don't know. Like that was really hot. So I was like really good at physics. So a lot of times I would be sitting there and people would just be calling me all the time and asking me questions, and I'm like helping them study. And like my family would come to me and be like, hey, like you need to study. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just on the phone and you're just like talking to people, but you're not like studying on your own. I'm like, no, but you don't understand. Like me helping them, I actually understand the stuff way better, and I don't need to study as much. Like it actually works to my advantage. I mean, that's not why I was doing it, but I just realized that it ends up working to my advantage, like sometimes even more than it does to theirs. I mean, they're getting the value, but I'm also getting that I'm explaining it and I'm understanding it better, and then I just need to study less, So it's very interesting. And I would always have these conversations with my family when they're like, "Hey, you got to study. You're just on the phone." I'm like, no, like you don't get it.
Okay, final question. If your life had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what would it be?
Man, and I think I was asked this before too, and I don't think I know. Yeah, I'm gonna. I don't know. I don't even know what I said the last time, to be honest. But the thing is, like, do I really want the same theme song playing every time in a room? I think that's kind of the thing. I think the last question was kind of like, would you want that, or would you want like a different song every time? And I don't know that I'd want the same exact one every single time. I think I'd want to keep people on their toes a little bit, and I'd want to shift it every time.
There you go.
Or every so often, yeah.
Well, you had great answers. That was fun.
Yeah, this is actually a really cool segment. I like it a lot.
Well, thank you again for joining us here today. So these will be in the show notes, but again, for folks who want to get in touch with you, how can they most easily do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, just email us at hello@pushanalytics.com. Put in the headline "construction disruption," right? Whatever you want in the email. The team will know to send that to me. I have a moderator on that email as well. So then I'll get back to you, and we're happy to jump on a call or something to talk about your business. I mean, for people listening to this podcast, just make sure that you put a construction disruption so we take care of you guys.
Great. That's a great solution. I like it.
Yeah. So hello@pushanalytics.com. It should be pretty easy.
So I'm pleased to report that we were all successful with our challenge words. That was pretty cool. Ryan, you had the word
Zucchini.
Abraham Lincoln and zucchini, perfect combination. Makes every bit of sense. I had the word chimera, which I'm not sure I'd ever heard of before. I think I've seen it before, but I somehow squeezed it in there.
You crushed it, though. That was a really good use of chimera, by the way. I got to say. You should put that as a clip on the teasers.
And Moustafa, your word was
Cyclops,
which you also did a great job of working it in there. Good job.
Yeah. I wanted to do a little more, but I forgot the first half. We were so into it, and that's why I was initially going to use it. I was like, oh shoot, I forgot. I got to circle back and make a U-turn and come into it.
This has been a great episode. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Well, and I will thank our audience too for tuning into this episode of Construction Disruption with Moustafa Moursy of Push Analytics. I encourage you, please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We always have great guests. Don't forget, please, to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Until the next time we're together, keep on challenging and disrupting, shaking things up out there, looking for better ways of doing things. And most important, don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Make them smile, encourage them. Simple yet powerful things we can all do to really change the world. So God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off. Until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.